Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday afternoon and spending time with us over here while we have casual conversations and chat with experts from the entrepreneurship ecosystem. My name is Triza. I head the entrepreneurship vertical at Idobro Impact Solution, and I have with me a very fabulous person, Myah Payal Mitra. And before we dive into what our topic is, I just want to make a very quick announcement about what's going to happen in next month. Next month, we are going to be diving in about investments, about pitch decks, and about company valuation. So do keep an eye on this space and sign up for our other LinkedIn Live exciting ones that we have lined up for next month as well. Coming to this one, this is Startup Dialogue, and this is episode number 4. And I'm going to very quickly introduce our special guest of this month, Myah, a LinkedIn top voice. She's a distinguished, award-winning global keynote speaker, coach, and corporate trainer. With over 15 years of robust tech expertise garnered at industry giants like TCS, HCL, and KPMG, Myah possesses a profound understanding of the modern workplace landscape. Awarded as Global Business Leader 2024 by World Women Congress and CMO Asia, Myah holds a Pioneer Accolade by NQB for her impactful contribution. Nominated as the Wellbeing Entrepreneur of the Year 2023, Myah is also celebrated as one of the top 5 women entrepreneurs for her commitment to mental health advocacy. Her work has been appreciated by global luminaries like Sheryl Sandberg, ex-COO of Meta. Through her work, Myah enables psychologically safe and thriving workplaces. Her unconventional career move from being an engineer to a certified movement therapy practitioner, transitioning from a big four management consulting firm to a first generation entrepreneur makes her story unique and breaking barriers. Featured in global media, Myah's entrepreneurial journey and personal transformation story, highlighted in the book Audaciousness, showcases her as the only female coach among 41 global thought leaders. Her passion for transformative leadership and dedication to fostering psychological safe workplaces make her a sought after influencer and thought leader globally. You can connect with Myah on her LinkedIn or on her website. And my colleague Aparna, who's part of our LinkedIn Live team, will be sharing her details in the comment section. So without further ado, let's welcome Myah to this episode of Startup Dialogue, and let's ask her what all is right now brewing in the coaching, leadership, and workspace space according to her. Myah, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Teresa, and the entire team at Idobro for having me here today. And thank you, everyone, joining in live for this exciting conversation. I hope to address some of your questions regarding how to build great workplaces with thriving work cultures and psychologically safe workplaces. So, yes, I'm all yours.
Thanks, Myah. So I think I'm going to, without further ado, just going to dive into the first question. Our primary audience that Idobro works with at the entrepreneurship verticals are startup founders. And when we talk to these young founders or first time founders, we realize there is a lot of focus on product building. There is a lot of focus in really speeding up the startup journey. There is
Right.
very little focus on investing in teams. And when I say investing in teams, is like creating a structured team or creating HR processes. I mean, they are all in the learning stage. So let's address the question, why should somebody think about building a sustainable, psychologically safe team culture in their business, in their startup, considering that they have so many other areas that they have to invest their time and money in?
Absolutely. And I think it's a brilliant question, Teresa, to start off with, because I think we all watch Shark Tanks, if not. So again, there we see a lot of people placing so much of importance on the product side of things, on how do we garner technology as an enabler and things like that. But then if we are not looking at the people side of things, sooner or later, it is going to become a challenge. Because if we really go back to thinking of it, what is the greatest asset that an organization has? The greatest asset of any organization is its people. the team that you build, and therefore the culture that your organization is built on. And if you ignore building a robust culture starting from the word go, and very early on, culture is built very early on. Whether we do it consciously or unconsciously is the question of a different day, but it is almost like the bedrock. And if we really do not pay heed today, tomorrow it will become a pain. So that's like a very baseline advice that I would like to give all the budding entrepreneurs, the startup founders, and people who are already into the ecosystem, to really go back and see what happens if we really take people out of the equation. Can you still run? Can you still function? Most likely the answer is going to be no.
Right. And I think we have just touched the surface of what we called as company culture. And Maya, I'm just going to divert a little bit. And I want to ask you this question about when young founders are building their business or somebody starting their business for the first time and they talk about company culture, people don't understand, or people just don't get what culture really, what elements of working in a professional setting or a cool startup setting would constitute as culture. So can you like give examples of what would you consider as a uh, safe or unsafe or healthy or unhealthy culture in a company? Like what says that this is the culture?
So culture, in my understanding, or the way I like to see it, culture is behaviors that get rewarded becomes culture, and behaviors that get repeated becomes culture. So if you have perhaps a toxic boss, and that is something which the organization is well aware of, but they are okay to live with, then it becomes part of the cultural DNA. And therefore, you're probably working in a toxic work culture. And why do we kind of get to hear the question around most often than not? And again, just to share this with all the audience here, is I'm also a career transition coach. So many a times I do get calls from people who are working in a startup ecosystem, in a startup environment, and they come back. Most likely they will come back with this as almost like a general statement saying that I am working in a toxic work culture where there is too much to be done and never enough time. And this becomes almost like, is this what startup work culture looks like for most of us, or for many of us? So therefore I think we are here to really really transform the narrative and look at it from a different perspective of, okay, why is it that there's a lot of conversation happening around toxic work cultures in a startup model? Why can we not talk about great workplaces even in a startup ecosystem? Why is it so hard? Why is it so difficult? But probably because we're paying so much of attention towards the product side of things, towards the technology enabled side of things, but we are actually forgetting the people side of things. And I, coming in from a technology background and having worked, in the product transformation space, in the so the way I look at it is people, product, and people, technology, and processes. So if you have your processes in place, you have your technology in place, you also need to get the people in place. So if and this is like it's a triad. You cannot really ignore one. You have to work with each one of them and pay equal, if not more importance, because sooner or later, it is going to come troubling.
So you mentioned people, technology, and
And
processes.
processes.
All of them need to work in sync and have to be
Absolutely.
integrated for the
Absolutely.
company to keep
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
Okay, I think in our preliminary conversation we spoke about the hustle culture in startup, and burnout is a very normal phenomena when it comes to when it comes to early stage businesses, and when it comes to businesses that are just starting out and in a hurry to reach a place where they can start pitching for investment or are
Mm.
looking at a steady source of customers coming in, bringing in regular income, right? So um, there seems to be a lack of information regarding what is the business implication when it comes to the hustle culture. Hustle culture is very cool, and people want to be associated or would want to be seen as really busy people. They take a lot of pride in being really really
It has
busy.
become a badge of
And
honor. Unfortunately, it has
yeah,
become a
yeah,
badge of honor. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, this is all very cool. This is all very great, and people would want to be associated with the hustle culture because it's just the in thing right now. But what is the business implication? Like, is there a real business implication? Will it hit the profits of the company? Will it hit, affect the growth of the company? If the team or the founder or everyone as a company culture has a lot of work always going on, and people are burning out every few months, does it what does it really mean for a business in the short, medium, or long term?
Yeah. So the question here is around sustainability, sustainability of the people and the business. So we anybody that starts a business has a vision so that it is sustainable, and there's a long term vision, right? Nobody wants to start a business and wind up, in the next 2 years. So if you are looking at building a sustainable business that runs long term, you really need to go back to the basics, and that's exactly what I'm trying to share here. The basics tell us that, there has to be balance. Anything that is out of balance will cause trouble sooner or later. And if we go back to the statistics, because you just shared, like, okay, what is the business implication? If we go back to the statistics, this is what, Gallup's workplace study report shares. I think this was 2023 report, which says that 8.8 trillion USD is the global business loss due to un disengaged employees. And who are the disengaged employees? Disengaged employees are the set of folks who are probably not being able to give 100% productivity at work. These are also the set of employees who are either experiencing burnout, mental health challenges because of inability to cope up with the work pressure or their personal life. And those are the set of people who are unengaged, who are disengaged at work. There could be chances that there are set of people who are probably in the wrong job at the wrong time with the wrong team. So that's another set of disengaged or unengaged people. Again, Deloitte's report says that there is a 2.2, I think the number says it's around 2.2 USD trillion, 2.2 billion USD is the amount of loss for unplanned leaves. So people who actually take unplanned leaves, that is the business implication at an annual global level. So these are large numbers that we are talking about, right? So therefore, if we really look at it, that how does it impact us? It definitely impacts us in the long run. So therefore, do you really want that to sit with that sort of a business loss implication? If the answer is no, then you might as well get started. And it doesn't have to be an extremely fancy employee engagement initiative, or it doesn't have to be an extensively, expensive initiative for that matter. Small things can really go a long way. And this is one of the places where the small things can really matter a long way.
Can you give an example of what the small things could be that startup founders can integrate it in their business and, ensure that not moving into, they're not pushing their team so much that there is burnout or their team leaving very swiftly?
Yeah. So one small, this could be the minutest of things. Well, easier said than done, but it could also be extremely difficult to implement. But I just want to share it out loud here, because this actually has the greatest impact. So one of the things is about starting. One of the small things that you can start as a startup owner or a entrepreneur in your workplace to build in the culture of balance, well-being within the organization, is to clearly have boundaries in terms of these are your work hours, these are your personal hours. And come what may, we do not expect you to wake up at 1 a.m. in the morning or in the middle of the night to respond to that email or to talk to your colleague over the phone or respond over WhatsApp. This is the simplest of things that one could do, but I know it's kind of also very difficult. And I also understand, coming in from a technology background, I've had those kind of times when we have had to sit through night outs for getting our product live, for getting the project live, whatever it may be. And we have those days as well. But whenever those days happen, ensure that you also give break after that for the entire team so that they have enough time to refresh and regroup. But if you are going from one project to the other, from one initiative to the other, from one product implementation to the other, the team is actually hardly having any time to really kind of decompress, to really kind of find a life apart from work. And a large part of the problem arises when we are over indexing our identity only on work. And this is what this is one of my favorite quotes that I go by, that we have become so busy in making a living that we have forgotten to live a life. So that's what I really want to kind of share as a thought, that let us not be in the business of busyness, busyness, busyness. Let's not be in the business of busyness. Take those conscious pauses and really find the balance.
Okay, everything that you said right now is so like anti-startup culture. Like it
Yes, I
shows
know, I know.
exactly opposite to what what a lot of people deeply believe, that you have to really hustle or work hard, or you have to be like 24/7 dedicated to your business. But the message that I'm getting in, as somebody who's experienced or worked with multiple startups in my own personal life, is that there has to be systematic inclusion of pauses after extensive or deep or
Yes.
intensive workload that you will give to your teams, or even for yourself, right? Like there has to be pauses where you take time to re-nourish yourself in a way that you can keep going on for the long run. Yeah, makes sense to me, but yeah, it's very
I know
anti
it's anti startup culture, like you said, but here I would like to pay a little bit heed of the on the fact that I'm not against hustle. Just to kind of put it out there, that there are times, there are moments, there are phases, there are stages when you actually have to work 70 hours a week or whatever it may take, but make sure that it does not become a part of your cultural DNA. That's exactly what I'm trying to say here. So, make sure that this does not become the cultural DNA of your organization, that it is not sustainable and people are unable to cope up with it, and sooner or later they will fall off the bandwagon. That's not what we want. We want people to be productive. We want them to be in a zone of flow. When people are in a zone of flow, that is when the best work comes out. You don't want people to be slogging 14 hours, 18 hours at the workplace, but when they have nothing to offer, mentally, emotionally, logically, they are just not there. Physically, you're probably being a zombie. Does that even, give any 1% of increase in your productivity? Hardly. But don't make that as a cultural DNA, that, oh, if you join us, you can pretty well, be sleeping in the workplace, because bring your sleeping bag and stay back here because we work 24/7. If that's the conversation that we have with our teams, then I think that's the starting point of really understanding, are you in it or are you in it? Like, what is it that you're signing up for? And if this is what they have clearly mentioned and you're signing up for it, then you already signed up for it.
Maya, I think this resonated with me really, really well. I get what you're talking about, like ensuring that even when you're building a startup and the hustle culture is there, ensuring that the hustle does not become part of the DNA. I think it makes so much sense. Of course, everybody has to work when there are projects are deliverable. Everybody has to work long hours, and we're taking the pause required for you to recover and recoup from those kind of situations so that you can bring back your best self. Yeah, totally makes sense. Okay, time is very less. We have only 10 minutes. I'm just going to call out the audience. If you have any burning questions for Myah, please put it on the comment section and we'll be taking it after a few more questions that I have lined up for her. So, Myah, I think you have developed a lot of programs in your organization. Some of them are based on somatic leadership. Sorry, you have a program on somatic leadership, and you teach the 5 dimensions of well-being and the C triad philosophy for shaping the culture of any business. I wanted you to just provide us a little bit more, just elaborate of what does this mean, because it feels very technical to understand. So if you can break it down for us, and how somebody who's listening to this can immediately and quickly benefit from your models, that would be amazing to hear from you.
Sure. It's not very technical to begin with, Teresa, but just to, give you a little bit of a background of what exactly is somatic coaching and why is it important? Why should you care? So somatic leadership. So, okay, let me just take a step back and share with you a little bit of my journey into the somatic space and, why it happened and how it happened. That itself is a very interesting story. As some of you might have already, heard me speak or have read some of the content that I write on LinkedIn, and some of you perhaps already know that I am a telecommunications engineer by education, and thereafter did my master's in business administration and went on to work for some of the largest tech and big four management consulting firms. And as I was going through the rigmarole of, shall we say, the rigmarole of the regular corporate life, I kind of also experienced workplace burnout, and that's when I think my interest and intrigue into understanding the world of well-being started, which actually got me into getting myself trained and certified as a movement therapy practitioner from Tata Institute of Social Sciences in 2014, almost 10 years back. I was part of the first batch in 2014 when this was started, and pretty much that is when my initiation started with understanding, because for me, I first wanted to understand what are the components of well-being and how does it impact me as an individual. And that's when my interest into the world of well-being started. And now when I operate as an independent coach and as a somatic leadership coach, I bring in the wisdom of the somatic of the from the world of somatics into the world of coaching and learning and development. So somatics is all about understanding the language of the body, and it's also about understanding how we connect the mind, body, and the emotions. So it actually goes a lot deeper than what we call in the cognitive processing, in the cognitive processes that are the conscious processes that we work with. But it takes you into a lot more of an embodied learning, and therefore it's a much more deepened learning of any concept that you want to learn with. So we actually use that to bring in a sense of connectedness, a sense of belonging, and a sense of purpose. So the 3C triad, what I work on is around connection, collaboration, and communication. These are the three main components that we largely look at when we are working on developing any of the programs around somatic leadership coaching. The 5 dimensions of well-being that I particularly use in most of my leadership training programs is around physical, mental, emotional, social, and financial. So if you actually look at it, these 5 components become the critical key pieces of our well-being. More often than not, if we actually forget the emotional well-being, we are going to be in a dark place. The other aspect is we cannot neglect the financial well-being aspect. And this is again something where, again, coming in from my experience as a career transition coach, I get a lot of calls from people who say, hey, I want to make more money. Tell me, coach me, teach me, how do I make more money? But a large part of the conversation does not happen around how do I manage money. So it's not just about making more money, but understanding how to manage your money. So that is the financial well-being aspect. We also work around that.
Great. This clarifies a lot about the programs that you offer. I think I'm going to jump back a little bit about your coaching and leadership program and talk a little bit about diversity. I think you
Mhm.
speak about diversity very passionately. And I wanted to understand how imperative it is for startups. Should startups who are working with very limited resources should also be thinking about diversity while they are building up their company, or is this something that they should worry about at a later stage? And if you can give any kind of real time examples without giving the names out, that would also be great.
So I think, diversity with regard to the workforce brings in diverse thoughts, brings in different experiences, and therefore you will not have everybody think alike or do alike. There's a concept called group thinking, which where everybody is thinking alike, and it's the herd mentality. If you do not want that in your organization, then you definitely want to invest in diversity. And it's not just a buzzword that, okay, we just want to do a tick mark of we are an equal employer, equal opportunity employer. That's not just something that you write when you are, doing your job description for a particular role while hiring, but really believe in the concept and really believe to work on it at a cultural level. And this should not be just an HR founder's agenda as to how do I build an organization with a culture of inclusivity, with a culture of diversity. Because again, diverse people will bring in diverse thoughts, diverse experiences, diverse backgrounds. And therefore, you will always have people questioning the status quo. You will always have people thinking differently and willing to kind of push the envelope. And that's exactly what you want. You look at organizations like Google, who heavily invests in diversity and believes in that. We look at 80-20 of Google, which I'm sure people who are listening in there already have read about the Google culture code. Why do we look at these organizations as the organizations that are on the front line of innovation when it comes to people, culture, and agenda? Because they actually invest in people's hobbies. They allow people to have their downtime, because creativity comes from a place of pause. Creativity comes from a place of stillness. So therefore it is important to actually give people that sort of a break or a pause. And again, tying it back to where we started off with, and these are all interconnected concepts, and it's not that we need to look at it in silos. Definitely we don't want to we don't want to look at it in silos. These are all interconnected.
Absolutely. I mean, you cannot consider 50% of the population as not existing and work in your company without really. And
Yes.
I completely agree. Like every time women come into the workforce, with respect to startup, they bring in more diversity with respect to even thinking about how the product will work for a larger audience, to how, how the use happens. And I think there have been multiple experiences in my personal life where I can point out and say that just adding more perspective, whether it is gender, whether it is culture, really helps you think through all aspects of how your product or service is going to function in the real market.
So let
Okay,
me
I'm
let
going
me
to, because
just
we have.
I'm just going to add one small point here. I know we are short on time, but I'll just add one small point before we move on around the diversity piece. Is that we are not just talking about diversity in terms of gender, but we are talking about diversity in terms of the background, whether it is the sexual orientation, whether it is the gender, whether it is working with people with different abilities. There could be various different ways of looking at diversity and not just looking at it from the gender lens. So that's exactly what I would encourage startup founders to see. What is the sort of culture that you want to build? And when you are working on the product side of things, that is also the time that you probably should be thinking of what is the kind of culture that I want to build in my organization. That's something which we cannot leave for a different day.
Thank you, Maya, for bringing that out. I think I'm going to very quickly jump to the last question because we are going to be running out of time. And I know this is a question that I think all leaders, irrespective of startup founders or business founders, struggle with. If there is a conflict in the organization, I mean, there is a conflict with an employee, like one-on-one, or conflict within the team members, what kind of strategies can leaders use to ensure that the conflict stay contained or resolve the conflict? So do you have any tools
Okay. So
that you
this
can
is
share?
something, when you say conflict, this is my classical advice for any sorts of, any sort of disagreement. I don't want to use the word conflict, but I would say disagreement. And it's absolutely okay to agree to disagree. And we can be respectful about it. Rather than throwing your weight around, or probably using your, let's say, hierarchy or position or power dynamics bringing into the equation, but really looking at it from the place of, not looking at it from a place of you versus me, but us versus the problem. So it's not that Teresa and Myah are fighting against each other, but Teresa and Myah are fighting against the problem. if we really look at it from that perspective, I think large part of the, the disagreement kind of, boils down to, okay, we are both trying to work on this as the problem. Let's team up and find a solution. And you can always be respectful even in a situation where you have to say something which the other person might not be willing to hear, or they may not want to agree, but that's absolutely okay. If we really if we really keep the emotionality and the emotional drama out of the equation, and really state the point, whatever needs to be said. If you have to call out a spade, so be it, but do it with panache and do it with grace, so that nobody feels hurt or attacked or offended at the end of the day.
And that is such a beautiful advice. It's just you and me against the problem rather than you and me against each other. I think that one is a keeper. That advice is really a big keeper in all books of entrepreneurship or even or leadership as somebody who's managing a team. Thank you, Myah. This was a brilliant conversation. And managing teams, resolving conflict, diversity in the team, etc., are such undermined topics when it comes to startup founders or startup businesses. I think this is the least of the priority. And I think because of you, we were able to bring this topic to the table and discuss the nitty-gritties of, building a team, whether it's toxic work culture or taking a pause, or, understanding the problem and keeping that problem out of the equation, or not just taking it personally. So I think we had a brilliant conversation where we learned these small nuggets of managing team and creating a startup culture that would be sustainable, diverse, and also resilience to changes. So thank you so much. If you have any last parting advice, then do share that, and then we'll wrap it up.
No, I think that it's been a great conversation, Teresa. Thanks for the moderation, and thank you to the entire IDOBRO team, everybody who's supporting us technically, for also inviting me and having this conversation going. If there is anything that you as a startup founder or an entrepreneur would like to reach out to me, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, or also on my website. It's www.movewithmyah.com, and happy to chat about anything that needs help with the people agenda and the cultural aspect.
Thanks, Myah. I think there are questions on in the comments, and I will request you to respond to them. Since our time is up, do take time to respond to any questions that you can. And to all the audiences who have been here, thank you so much for spending your Saturday afternoon with us. Have a great evening, and stay tuned for the next episode, which is Startup Dialogue episode number 5, coming in next month. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye bye. Take care.